My dear colleague Shane and I are here to discuss something that sooner or later, Shane, we had to discuss. You'd agree, right?
Yeah, it was coming. It was just a matter of when it was coming.
Yeah.
Very surprising though that it came at that point, or not so surprising, but hey,
Just
nature
100 days is what this man got after he was having a good time, I would say, at Brighton. In fact, it is a stupendous job as far as getting the club to the Premier League is concerned, making sure that they're doing well in terms of staying in the top 10. Because of all the good work, in fact, that he did over there, it sort of made the job easy for the man coming in. And Brighton, by the way, still continue to be on the high on which the man that you see on the screen, Graham Potter, had left them at. But Chelsea, the club that he was supposed to be rescuing, happened to have swapped places, let's say, in many ways with Brighton, because Brighton seemed to have had a real change in fortune, but not for Chelsea Football Club.
No, we have had a change of fortunes. It's just gotten worse.
And certainly not for this man who is jobless. Now, just 100 days after he was appointed the manager of Chelsea.
No, it wasn't 100 days.
Just about 100.
No, he was appointed in September. And it's April now.
It's April, yeah.
I know he lost 1 month through the
World Cup.
But
yes.
that means he was in essence in a job for 5 months.
5 months, and just about 30 odd games, if I'm not wrong.
Yeah, and he leaves with, I think he's actually statistically the worst Chelsea manager in terms of points per game for quite some time.
And this was supposed to be a union as far as a new owner at Chelsea is concerned, as far as new manager, a young manager also, by the way. This is considered to be a union for the long term. That's what the club also believed, that this is part of a rebuilding process. This is part of something new. He was given the confidence. He was also given the budget, let's say, to be able to turn things around at Chelsea and maybe start something afresh. Not the case, really.
Yeah, so what you're left with now at Chelsea is a lot of very good players, plenty of money spent, no full-time manager yet. Of course, you have players or managers being linked, but I don't think any new person is going to be named. But it does leave us with the rather interesting question, should he have been sacked in the first place? Now, bare facts, again, with Graham Potter's Chelsea, and I can say this as a fan because week in, week out, you were tuning in to watch their matches. You didn't really know which Chelsea were going to turn up.
Yeah.
You had no idea, because they could be really good one day, bang average the next. More often than not, there was no in between.
Absolutely. We saw that, let's say, in the last month. If we just go to look at Chelsea last month, lost to there was points dropped at St. Mary's, if I'm not wrong.
There was points dropped in Southampton, at Everton.
But in the midst of all of it, there were points most recently, let's say, dropped at the Villa Park as well.
That was the straw that broke the camel's back.
Exactly, that was the final straw. But having said that, in the midst of all of this, when we speak about the last 1 month, there was also a good and a comprehensive victory against, let's say, Dortmund. And that perhaps will be the only high that, let's say, Graham Potter will probably now be leaving with, that he took Chelsea, let's say, to a certain and a respectable stage as far as the Champions League is concerned. And that, by the way, after that first leg was a good, it was followed up with a very good win in the second leg. You thought it would be tricky, given that, as Shane said, you didn't know what Chelsea would turn up. But in that pressure, and possibly, let's say, that those were like the two biggest matches that they've, had this whole season, when things haven't gone their way at all. So it's been a mixed bag in many ways, and which is why we are here to talk about the fact that were Chelsea right in terms of giving Graham Potter the sack? By the way, the 15th manager, we were having a count, right, Chin?
We were having a count. He's the 12th manager since 2004 to have gotten the sack at Chelsea. So it's actually in many ways a badge of honor if you get the sack at Chelsea, because it doesn't really affect your reputation as much. Over the years,
pretty sure Mourinho is going to give him a call and tell him, okay, you got the sack, you're now a manager.
Yes, exactly. Now you've really faced the rigors of the Premier League. Because remember, Brighton, when he left, Chelsea essentially had to pay a transfer fee for him, because you had to buy him out of the contract. Then he was made the highest paid manager in the world and given a 5-year contract, which, by the way, he didn't even see out a year off.
Exactly.
Which means it's actually a really expensive sacking, because you paid good money to extract him from his contract, and now you're going to have to pay him compensation. And that's going to be expensive. And that is in addition to, of course, all the signings you've done, all of the money that you will now again be spending on signings and bringing in a new manager.
Bringing a new manager, of course. The bigger question, will all of the money that was spent, just about 600 million if I'm not wrong.
Yeah, a lot of outlay.
280 when Tuchel was there. But interestingly, Shane, if we are to look at both the managers, let's say 280 million spent in the summer transfer window, then about another 290 odd, let's say, in the January transfer window, somewhere just close to about 600 million being spent in both managers. I still can't get my head around. Of course, there's numbers to back the fact that, okay, there was one faction at Chelsea, or let's say the management wanted him out because the numbers didn't favor him. But with both the managers, if you see, was there enough time being given by Todd Bowley? He says that he wanted a long-term solution and we wanted this to be a long-term project. But were both the managers given enough time for the 300 million respective spendings, let's say, to fructify or to show any sort of any sort of work, let's say?
They weren't, quite frankly. And where I really feel for Potter is that he actually inherited one of the most difficult jobs in the Premier League. Historically so, more so now considering Chelsea are in very much a period of next level transition. You had a full-on ownership change, many new players come in, all fitting a clear mold, with of course the idea that, you take a season or two to rebuild and then launch another assault to becoming a dominant dynastic team again. So in my case, it's a complicated answer because for me, I feel sorry for Potter because again, he was put in a thankless situation, but I don't think he should have been hired to begin with. Personally, I was very disappointed when Tuchel was sacked because the decision made no sense. And yes, I understand that, there were some issues with upper management, but the simple fact of the matter was he is arguably one of the best coaches in the modern game right now. That is Thomas Tuchel. The fact that you were willing to let him go because there was things you couldn't hash out speaks rather poorly of the top level management.
And just want to pick your brains as to why you think he wasn't the right man for the job. Was it the fact that he hadn't managed such a big club before?
Yes.
It's all, and when you come to a big club like Chelsea, there's not just big money involved, which you, by the way, should know how to utilize. It's not just about splurging money. And that's not to say that he did splurge money, but at a big club, it's about managing that money. It's about managing big egos, managing big players, and handling a rather tough management as well.
Yeah, because it was a step up from the next. It was, I don't know, normally you will have managers who will kind of make step ups in terms of, gradually they'll do it, let's say. So in Potter's case, his major big break as far as big clubs went was Chelsea, very much a top of the pyramid club. But his most notable job prior to that was Brighton, who he had gotten promoted and then made into like a sustainable, consistent Premier League club. That's a
2017 is when he got them in. And
there's no doubting the job that he did there's no doubting the fact he did an excellent job. But again, from there, you'd maybe try and go to a club that are maybe just about only competing for UCL. Historically, don't have that expectation that you have to win trophies. Remember, Chelsea, despite the fact that they have not won a league title since the 2016-17 season, have rarely if ever gone trophyless. There is always an expectation of Chelsea managers that you are bare minimum looking at a top 4 finish and maybe winning a trophy.
Maybe a domestic cup.
Yes, a domestic cup, a European cup. And don't forget, during this time period, 17 onwards, you've won 3 European cups. If you count the Super Cup. You won the Europa League, you won the Champions League again, and you've won the Super Cup. You've won FA Cups in that period, you've won League Cups in that period. So it's not as if there isn't a, expectation from a Chelsea manager that you have to be winning. And, with Chelsea, historically, Chelsea fans don't really care that much about a style of play. Success over everything.
Absolutely. That's been the thing with Chelsea. Let's say ever since that Abramovich era sort of ushered in, you're more used to seeing a Chelsea, that is just result oriented. Really, they're not giving too much into what's happening on the field, off the field. All you need is results. Let's say it doesn't matter how you're playing, what the locker room chat is all about. Don't really give two hoots about what's happening over there.
And that's the thing. I think, to be fair, the remit that was given to Potter was change the style of play, bring about something long term. All of these things. And by the way, we've seen this happen before at Chelsea. You've seen it happen with 2 previous young managers. The man
Di Matteo?
No, Di Matteo was not a young manager. He had managerial experience, but he was inexperienced. When I say young managers, I'd say Andre Villas-Boas
and Lampard
and Frank Lampard, both of them given a similar remit, both of them failing massively at it. So the point is, and the thing was, I think both of them were massively underprepared for the job they had. Because again,
Lampard certainly was.
Yes, because Lampard's first job before that was Derby County in the second division. That's it. 1 odd year there, and that's that. Beyond that, he was never going to be prepared for the Chelsea job, and it was pretty evident. It showed really in the way he was managing things.
But I just want to add again. With Lampard, I think I agree with you. He was probably, he was pushed into it too soon or brought into the system back too soon. But with him, I think there is a little bit of a logic that I see with the bringing in Graham Potter. And that's where I think I disagree with you a bit, because I'll tell you what, unlike Lampard, what Graham Potter has done is he spent enough time at Brighton, and this sustained success, whatever success that means to Brighton may not it's not the kind of success that Chelsea would ever envision, because Chelsea are at a much are in a much elite league, let's say, than Brighton presently are, and that's not disrespecting where Brighton are at the moment. Credit to them, in fact, for being in the top 10 for a long time in this particular season. But then the fact that he brought them back to the Premier League, got them promoted, and for a couple of years now was very close to getting, not just beating good teams, he was pretty close to getting them into the race. He was very much in the race for Europe as well.
Exactly, Conference League, Europa League, if nothing else.
Exactly. So that gave Chelsea, let's say, the hope that a manager with very limited funds, if he can deliver, let's say, the goods at somebody at a club like Brighton, why not at Chelsea? And there was a style of play that Everton continued to have, by the way, I would say. That Brighton continued to have, beg your pardon. So putting together all of that, it makes some logic, if you ask me, as to why Graham Potter was brought in the first place. And now just talking about what we are here to talk about, which is if the sack was given too soon, I think maybe there is merit if you say that yes, indeed, the sack was given too soon. I'll talk about the other part of that as well before Shane also makes his point. But why I feel he was given the sack too soon, again, the first real transfer window that he had was in January.
Things were always tough.
Which was always going to be, and it is anyway a tougher transfer window to attract the best players, because they're frankly not available midway through the season. That's not to say that the signings that Chelsea made, which was record breaking in many ways, you brought in a Mudryk, you brought in an Enzo Fernandez, you did try to bolster your squad as much as possible, but having said that, a 2.5 month period after the January transfer window ended isn't really enough time for any manager to give you results then and there. And this is where my problem with Chelsea is. They've actually gone back to doing what they did with Roman Abramovich, just hoping for instant success. Now that wasn't the template, or that wasn't the kind of setting that they had projected when Todd Bowley had come in. He said, we're looking at long-term projects over here because we want to lay a fresh foundation. It is contrary to what exactly was spoken about, let's say, 8 to 10 months back when the whole change in management happened.
Correct. In fact, what even makes things worse is that whatever, and Roman Abramovich was a very trigger-happy owner.
Yeah.
But not even he sacked 2 permanent managers in the same season. Yes. That is the thing. It's like, okay, you're seeing this happen. And by the way, this seems like a long year in terms of football, because, you had a World Cup in between the season. Yes. Normally, it's always in the off season. So due to that, it seems like a much longer season. But remember that Tuchel Conte fight.
Yes,
this
absolutely.
Season.
You can't believe that both the managers
are now out of the jobs at the clubs where they were fighting at.
Yeah.
And truth be told, I do feel for Potter. I do feel bad for him, and I don't think his reputation has been battered that much. It's always tough to sometimes come in and manage in a top club, because again, the expectations are different. You expect instant results, you expect success. But I do also think that he probably shouldn't have been hired in the first place, mainly because I think it was very unfair of the club to sack Tuchel. I think they could have hashed out whatever differences they had. And I think they could have worked further on the long-term project which they wanted, because again, Tuchel came in at a time when Chelsea were expecting nothing. Came and won you a Champions League. Finished top 4. Then he came after that, took you to 2 cup finals, won you 2 trophies. Yes, it was a Super Cup and a Club World Cup, but still, he had the credentials. You backed him in the summer. You saw a bit of a downturn, and then thereafter, oops, gone. You backed, Potter excruciatingly well through the January transfer window. You don't see results, sack. And honestly, I understand wanting to sack him. I do understand that, because I understand, results weren't good enough, but the simple fact of the matter is this could have even waited till the summer. Because now you really have nothing to play for this year. Even, a Champions League run seems unlikely at best. So you have nothing to play for. Season is getting over. You could have actually persisted. You weren't out, pretty much out of the race for you.
And you don't even know if somebody's going to be. Yes, there is an interim coach who's appointed, but you don't know somebody like a Nagelsmann, and those are some of the questions that have been coming in as to who the likely appointments could be. It does appear that Nagelsmann is in fact touted to be the next or the best possible man, let's say, to replace Graham Potter at the moment at Stamford Bridge. But let's say going into a big match against Real Madrid, there is all likelihood, because these things can often take time, and Chelsea again will be faced with a similar situation that they were faced with about 6 months back. Again, they would want to hire somebody for the long term, and then you're looking at such a big match, which, by the way, that is the only hope for Chelsea to have a change in fortune, if that's possible. That is to take the European route, get the trophy, and ensure that you're there. But again, it sounds too far-fetched. Very far-fetched. But imagine going into that top match, a box office match, without a manager there.
Exactly. You're going with an interim manager. And truth be told, again, as Chelsea fans, you've been there before.
Yes.
You've been there before, interim manager against toppest of top clubs in Europe. You won the trophy.
You won the trophy with an interim manager.
Exactly. But I have no hopes of that happening this time around. And truth be told, all it's done, and I think this is true for a lot of Chelsea fans, is pretty much told you, okay, season over.
Yeah.
As if it wasn't already.
Yeah.
And
also the other reason, let's say, to believe that it's not going to happen the same way that it did in 2012, I believe, because again, back then
you had an experienced veteran core.
Exactly. You hadn't seen the kind of chopping and changing that you've seen here happen this time around. You had a bunch of players come in the summer. You had another bunch of players come in the summer.
Exactly.
You don't really know what the core of the team is, and that's never a good deal.
Also, remember that Chelsea team had a senior core of the likes of Lampard, Terry, Drogba, Jack, Cole.
Yes.
So those were guys who, even though they were at the fag end of their careers, had big match experience.
Yes.
That helped a lot. Right now, this team is very young, so that is why I have really no hope of them doing anything. Now it's just a case of wait till the summer and reset. Simple as. Season is done with. Doesn't matter what happens from here on out. Of course, you'll be looking at the matches, but very much a pointless season at this point. I hope I'm proven wrong. That's just how I feel about it right now. So, any which way.
Any comments that we can take?
Divyansh Jain is asking who are the candidates for becoming the next coach. So there are two who are being linked more so than anyone, and both are Germans. Hansi Flick and Julian Nagelsmann are the two names so far, but of course there are going to be a lot of people linked now, just because it's a big vacancy. You're going to see a lot of players. Harsh Khatri is trolling both of us for whatever reason. But yeah, come on, they are getting personal now. But I do agree with what he's saying there, where he says that Tuchel should never have been sacked in the first place. See, clueless owners, yes. New owners, not sure how football works. I think they'll figure that out over time. Feel terrible for Potter. I feel for him too, but I don't think, keeping him on. See, another way of looking at things also is keeping him on for so long when he was quite clearly out of his depth. Is this why you've put him out of his misery? And I'm sorry, but if fans are chanting, you're getting sacked in the morning, and they weren't Villa fans, by the way, they were Chelsea fans. It means you've not only lost the dressing room, but you've also lost the fans.
The faithful.
Once you've lost the fans, I remember Maurizio Sarri came very close to being sacked when fans were booing him in his 1 year. He ended up seeing through the season, did well. But if the fans aren't feeling it, and that to the match-paying fans, that's it. So I think the consensus we have here is that, yes, it was unfair.
It was.
It was. But it was probably a job he never should have gotten in the first place.
But even then, I think we also sort of agree when we say that it does no harm to his reputation at the football circles. As far as Graham Potter and his managership goes, goes, I think it doesn't really dent his reputation as far as...
being sacked by Chelsea or Real Madrid are badges of honor.
Exactly. And getting the sack at Chelsea, well, we've seen Champions League winners sort of take that.
We sacked Mourinho twice.
Exactly. So that's pretty much something which was inevitable in many ways, and Chelsea are that club that you always want instant success. Again, contrary to you thought that there would be a change of heart, let's say, with this new ownership.
But I think even they've realized that
sort of
it's gotten worse.
It's sort of the bedrock now.
Two managers in 1 year. So that's what we feel about it. You guys can let us know in the comments what you think, and we hope you enjoyed this debate. If you did, please don't forget to like this video, share it with your friends, subscribe, tap the bell, leave us a comment. As I said, follow us on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, download the AajTak app, and stay tuned to the channel. We have so much more coming to you. Big IPL game coming as well. So stay tuned for that. For now, though, I'm Harshit and me. Bye bye.